In a cold courtroom, a stranger's 5 words shattered my cousin Daniel's wine glass. The homeless man was me. My uncle's $800 million fortune hung in the balance, and we'd all been secretly judged for a year. Every choice, every word, every moment we thought private, exposed. Who would inherit it all? And what dark truths would surface? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Veil of Vengeance for more powerful stories of betrayal, revenge, and redemption. The private investigator stood up in that courtroom and said 5 words that made my cousin Daniel's champagne glass shatter in his hand. The homeless man was me. That's when we all realized program my billionaire Uncle Harold had been testing us for an entire year, and none of us knew we were being watched. Every conversation, every choice, every moment we thought we were alone with our true selves had been carefully documented. The man we'd all been fighting over, whose fortune we'd spent 6 months tearing each other apart to claim, had orchestrated the most elaborate test of character I'd ever witnessed, and my name is Brian Caldwell, and I'm about to tell you how my uncle's death revealed the worst and best in all of us. How a man who built an $800 million shipping empire from nothing decided that his legacy wouldn't be about money, but about a much older form of currency, human kindness. You need to understand the players in this game because Uncle Harold had been studying us all like specimens under a microscope. There was Uncle Harold himself, 74 years old when he died, a shipping magnate who started with one rusty freighter and built it into Caldwell Shipping Global. The man could negotiate a deal with anyone from port authorities to international tycoons, but he couldn't figure out how to tell his family he loved them without putting a dollar sign on it. Then there was Daniel, my oldest cousin at 35, a Wall Street broker who wore $3,000 suits and kept a spreadsheet of everyone who owed him favors. He'd been working at Uncle Harold's company since college, positioning himself as the crown prince of the empire. Daniel once told me that emotion was just weakness dressed up in a bow tie, and he lived by that philosophy every single day. My cousin Marina came next, 32 years old and sharp enough to cut glass with her ambition. She'd built herself into one of the most successful luxury real estate agents on the East Coast, the kind who sold penthouses to foreign billionaires and kept senators on speed dial. Marina had this way of smiling that made you check your wallet afterward just to make sure it was still there. Trevor, the youngest of my cousins at 30, was the family's walking cautionary tale. He'd burned MYD through 7 businesses and twice as many of Uncle Harold's loans, each venture more spectacularly doomed than the last. But Trevor had something the others didn't. Desperation so thick you could practically smell it on him, like cologne gone bad in the heat that my mother Florence was Uncle Harold's younger sister, though you'd never know they shared blood. Where he built empires, she built birthday cakes at her small bakery in Queens. She'd marry my father, David, a mechanic who could fix anything with an engine, but never quite figured out how to fix his relationship with the Caldwell family money machine. And then there was me, 28 years old, teaching high school chemistry to kids who mostly just want to know if I could cook meth like in that TV show. I was the one who'd chosen chalk dust over gold dust, lesson plans over business plans. The family disappointment who drove a 10-year-old Honda while my cousins compared yacht sizes. But here's what none of them knew as we sat in that courtroom. What Uncle Harold had hidden from all of us. He'd been dying for 2 years, his heart giving out one beat at a time. And he'd spent those final years answering a question that had haunted him since he'd made his first million. The question wasn't who deserved his money. It was who deserved it the least. And the answer would destroy everything we thought we knew about each other, about him, and about what family really means when you strip away the gold plating and get down to bone. The day Uncle Harold died, I was teaching my students about chemical reactions, how sometimes you need a catalyst to reveal what elements are really made of. I had no idea that Uncle Harold had decided to be that catalyst for his own family, that he'd already lit the fuse on an explosion that would reveal exactly what kind of people we really were when we thought nobody was watching. But somebody was watching. Somebody was always watching. And when the truth finally came out, when that investigator stood up and revealed what Uncle Harold had been planning all along, my cousins' faces didn't just go white. They went translucent, like you could see right through them all the ugly thoughts they'd been hiding, all the cruel little calculations they'd been making while pretending to grieve. This is the story of how my uncle's final test turned his funeral into a resurrection of truth and how the poorest, Member of the Caldwell family became the richest in ways that had nothing to do with numbers in a bank account. It started with a death, included a war, and ended with a revelation that changed not just who inherited the money, but what we all understood about the price of human soul. Growing up as Harold Caldwell's nephew meant living in two different worlds. While my cousin spent summers on his yacht learning about international shipping routes and container logistics, I spent mine helping my mom at her small bakery in Queens, learning that the secret to perfect bread was patience, and that sometimes the richest conversations happened over the cheapest coffee. My Uncle Harold had built his empire moving cargo across oceans. He started with one rusty freighter in 1973, the Florence Marie, named after my mother. He'd bought it with every penny he'd saved working dock jobs, plus a loan from a shark who'd threatened to break his legs if he missed a payment. By the time I was born, he owned 200 vessels and controlled shipping routes that connected Shanghai to Seattle, neighbor Shenzhen but Hamburg to Houston. Your uncle could sell ice to Eskimos, my father once said while fixing our garage door, but he couldn't give away a compliment if his life depended on it. Dad was right. Uncle Harold communicated in numbers, deals, and strategic advantages. Love was a leveraged buyout. Affection was a limited partnership. Every family gathering felt like a board meeting where we were all jockeying for position, trying to prove our worth in the only currency he seemed to understand. The Thanksgiving before he died stands out in my memory like a scar. We gathered at his Connecticut estate, a 40-room mansion that felt more like a museum than a home. The dining room table could seat 30, but there were only 8 of us, spread out like islands in an ocean of mahogany. Brian doesn't have a killer instinct, Uncle Harold announced over the turkey, speaking to my mother, but looking at me. Teaching kids won't make him rich, Florence. Maybe he doesn't want to be rich, Harold, my mother replied, her voice steady as she set down her fork. Maybe he wants to be happy. Happiness doesn't pay for heart surgery when you're 70. He shot back, and something in his voice made me look up. There was a tremor there, barely noticeable, like a crack in foundation you don't see until the whole house starts tilting. Daniel laughed. That practice, Mr. Wall Street laughed that sounded like money being counted. Brian thinks he's noble, choosing poverty. But we all know teachers who win the lottery don't go back to the classroom Monday morning. I had a teacher who did. I said quietly, "Acknowledgements." Mrs. Goldman won $4 million in the Powerball. Came back the next semester. Said she wasn't done yet. Then she was an idiot, Marina chimed in, examining her nails. $4 million properly invested could generate enough passive income to fund a whole school. Or, I countered, she understood that some things matter more than compound interest. Uncle Harold watched this exchange with those sharp, or pink eyes of his, the ones that could spot a bad contract clause from across the room. He didn't say anything, just cut his turkey with mechanical precision, but I caught him looking at me differently after that, not with approval exactly, but with curiosity, like I was a shipping route he hadn't considered before. The family gatherings always followed the same script. Daniel would detail his latest merger, the numbers getting bigger each time like he was inflating a balloon that we all knew would eventually pop. Marina would showcase her sales, dropping names of celebrities who bought condos through her. Each story carefully crafted to remind us that she moved in circles the rest of us could only dream about. Trevor would pitch whatever business idea he'd cooked up that month, his enthusiasm inversely proportional to its actual viability. "You still driving that Honda?" Daniel asked me at what would turn out to be Uncle Harold's last 4th of July party. The fireworks hadn't started yet, but the family fireworks were already in full swing. "I could hook you up with my Ferrari dealer. Family discount." "I'm good," I replied, watching Uncle Harold from across the garden. He was standing alone by the fountain, observing everyone like he always did, those sharp gray eyes taking mental notes. There was something different about him that night, a stillness that reminded me of the ocean just before a storm. "A man is not what he drives," Uncle Harold said, appearing beside us, so suddenly that Daniel actually jumped. "A man is what he does when he thinks nobody is watching." It was such an unusual thing for him to say that we both just stared. Uncle Harold wasn't given to philosophy. His wisdom usually came with decimal points attached. But he just smiled, that rare smile that made him look younger, almost vulnerable, and walked away. I didn't know then that he'd already hired a private investigator. I didn't know that every interaction was being cataloged, every choice weighed and measured. I just knew that something was shifting in the family dynamic, like tectonic plates moving beneath our feet, preparing for an earthquake that would reshape everything we thought we knew about each other. The call came on a Tuesday morning during my second period chemistry class. I was explaining molecular bonds to 32 sophomores when my phone buzzed against my desk. The principal's name flashed on the screen, which meant someone was either dead or arrested in the Caldwell family. Both were equally possible. "Brian, you need to come to my office," Principal Morrison said when I stepped into the hallway. "Your mother called. It's about your uncle." Uncle Harold had collapsed in his office at 9:47 a.m., his hand still holding a shipping contract for a new route to the Panama Canal. Massive heart attack. The cleaning lady found him slumped over his desk, and by the time the paramedics arrived, he was gone. 74 years of building an empire, and it ended between signatures on a document he'd never completed. MRE. The funeral was held at St. Catherine Cathedral, the same church where Uncle Harprobly and her enrolled had been baptized. The shipping industry turned out in force. There were executives from major ports, representatives from docks across 6 continents, and enough lawyers to staff a small country. The family section, however, told a different story. We sat in the front pews like actors who'd forgotten their lines, each of us performing grief while calculating percentages. He looked peaceful, Marina whispered to Daniel during the service, though her eyes were scanning the crowd, probably calculating the net worth per pew. "He never looked peaceful a day in his life," Daniel replied, adjusting his black Armani suit for 4th time. "Peaceful men don't build empires." Trevor sat between them, sweating despite the cathedral's cool air, his fingers drumming against his thigh in a nervous rhythm that screamed unpaid debts and last chances. My parents sat beside me, my mother crying genuine tears while my father held her hand with his oil-stained fingers, the ones he hadn't been able to scrub completely clean even for the funeral. I was the only one who'd noticed the small detail that would have mattered to Uncle Harold. They'd gotten the flowers wrong. He hated lilies, called them death flowers, but the funeral director had filled the cathedral with them. Uncle Harold had loved roses, the yellow ones from his garden that he tended himself every Sunday morning. The only thing besides his empire that he'd built with his own hands 3 days after we put him in the ground. The family was summoned to the offices of Cromwell and Associates in downtown Manhattan. The building was one of those glass towers that scraped the sky and intimidated anyone who walked through its doors. Aldrich Cromwell had handled the Caldwell family legal affairs for 30 years, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who looked like he'd been born in a 3-piece suit. "Thank you all for coming," Cromwell said, gesturing for us to sit around the massive conference table. "There's been a development, Reg. Rim buting Mr. Caldwell's estate." "Development?" Daniel leaned forward, his hands already positioned like he was about to sign something. "Just read the will and let's get this over with." Cromwell removed his glasses, cleaned them slowly, and then delivered the words that turned our world upside down. "Will Caldwell's cannot be located." The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the room exploded. "That's impossible." Daniel slammed his fist on the mahogany table hard enough to make the water glasses jump. "He told me everything was in order. He promised that the company would stay in family hands. He promised me that I would be the one to lead it forward." He caught himself, but we all heard it. The sense of entitlement, that assumption that Uncle Harold's empire would flow naturally to him like water finding its level. "Without a will, the estate goes to probate," Cromwell continued, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around him. "As Mr. Caldwell's only living relatives, you'll need to petition the court for distribution. The process could take months, possibly years." "Years?" Trevor's voice cracked like a teenager's. "I can't wait years. I have creditors who won't wait years." "That's your problem," Marina snapped, already pulling out her phone to call her lawyer. "The rest of us can afford to do this properly." The battle lines were drawn before we even left the building. Within 24 hours, Daniel had hired a team from Sherman and Sterling, the kind of lawyers who ate smaller lawyers for breakfast. Marina brought in a forensic accountant to value every asset down to the last paperclip, in Uncle Harold's desk drawer. Trevor, desperate and increasingly bitter, started making wild accusations about Daniel having undue influence over Uncle Harold's final years, suggesting everything from forged documents to elder abuse. The war for Uncle Harold's empire had begun, and none of us realized we were playing exactly the game he designed for us to play 6 months into legal nightmare, with lawyers bleeding the estate dry at $5,000 per billable hour. Cromwell called another emergency meeting. By then, we'd spent more on legal fees than most people earn in a lifetime, and the family dinners had turned into depositions where everything you said could and would be used against you in probate court. This time, when we entered conference room, Cromwell wasn't alone. A woman sat beside him, probably mid-50s, with him but hair pulled back in a bun and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. She held a leather briefcase in her lap, like it contained nuclear codes. And there was something about her posture that reminded me of a sniper waiting for the perfect shot. "This is Miss Nadia Voss," Cromwell announced, his voice carrying a weight that made everyone stop checking their phones. "She's a private investigator who's been employed by McCullers, Caldwell's estate, for the past 18 months. The math hit everyone simultaneously. 18 months. Uncle Harold had only been dead for 6. What kind of sick game is this? Daniel stood up, his face flushing the dangers red that usually preceded either a firing or a lawsuit. "You're telling me Harold hired someone to spy on us while he was still alive?" "I'm telling you," Cromwell said, producing a sealed envelope from a safe, with the kind learnt-'em-off ceremony usually reserved for opening Egyptian tombs, that Mr. Caldwell anticipated this exact situation. This envelope contains his actual will, with specific instructions sound acid and tantalized. 10 interactions. Had it only been interactions. He opened Alien to Miss Voss learn interactions. 10 interactions, him, but McCullers, a completed H. shown sound of sack acknowledgments. MRNT and the family had, in his words, Mr. shown their true CDFNC MRLRS. My mother reached for my father's hand. Marina's perfectly manicured nails dug into the leather armrest of her chair. Trevor looked like he might vomit into the crystal water pitcher, and I just colors. Mr. sat there, remembering something Uncle Harold had told him during one of our chess games. The best MOVMRE is often shown when your opponent never sees learn coming. Acknowledgments. Mr. Cromwell broke the seal with a silver letter opener, the sound sharp as breaking bones in the silent room. He unfolded the papers inside, cleared his throat, and began to read in the assignment anim, but same tone you'd use to announce a terminal analyzed. Assignment endosis. I, Harold Marcus Caldwell, being a sound mind anim but here bicolors, declare this to be my last W. Mril and testament. But first, let me defense the interactions. Morel you a story. When I was building my empire, I learned that you can judge a ship's worth not by how it handles calm seas, but by how it weathers storms. The same is true of people. So I decided to create a storm. Cromwell paused, looked up at us over his glasses, then continued. I leave my entire estate, all holdings, assets, and control marine interest in Caldwell's ship, shown Merping global to the family member but demonstrated the acknowledgments. Interactions. Mr. Great-Mrest's kindness, compassion, and genuine humanity over the 12 sound ASMR months preceding my death. Defense sound as Miss Nadia Voss as defensine Terrorless Drillicet serving in Docum, Mr. McCullers, and imbuing all interactions both with me and with others. She has employed a team of observers, conducted surveillica, assignment, and acknowledgments. Lance, and compiled comprehensive ream reports on each Pumrile beneficiary. T interactions, SMRIs insane. Daniel's voice broke through. You Simran spy on people and call it a Willie Annalise shown him, but Mr. Murnis is entrapment. It's illegal. It's perfectly legal, Cromwell interrupted. Mr. Caldwell's fortune. Are you Mr. Caldwell's rules? Miss Voss, would you please share your findings? Nadia Voss stood up slowly, like a prosecutor approaching the jury, for safe with closing arguments. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a tablet, swiping through what looked like Mr. Amari thousands of pages of documents, photos, sound, ASMR video files. For the MRSD year, my team and I have observed each Ophiarn in various situations, she began, her voice analyzed, carrying the kind of authority sound as that came from decades of what interactions in people when they thought they were alone. We've analyzed, documented your interactions with service work catalogers, homeless individuals, emplo Mr. Mrs., shipping, strangers in need, and of course with analyze Mr. Caldwell himself. She tapped the tablet, and the conference room's shown screen came to life, showing surveillance footage from Uncle Harold's office building. Every morning for 3 months, Mr. Mare, homeless man, sat outside Caldwell shipping headquarters. He was there from analyzed December through February, the coldest months of Team Run East. This man was my colleague, interactions. Mr. retired NYPD Detective Raymond Fielding, defense. The screen showed the familiar but macabre entrance to Uncle Harold's building. The homeless man, bundled in worn interactions and blankets, holding a cardboard sign that safe with, invisible to every old rim but God. Each of you passed multiple team rhymes. Voss continued. Your reactions were gried and analyzed. Learnt Mr. Mrim, but my cousins shifted in their seats like defendants waiting for a verdict. I remember that man, remembered bringing him coffee and interactions. These sandwiches on colors. Those freezing sound as mornings when I visited Uncle Harold for our Sunday chess games. I hadn't Noah signalized, and Dassy shown analyzed, met, and when anyone was watching, I just sounded see known that February wind cut the interactions. Rough everything. M. Riley hoped it learnt, but that was just one TMRSD of many, Voss said, acknowledgments. Shown her finger hovering over the but Merblay like a judge of colors, Timbuter a gavel. Shall we review them all? Nadia Voss Khan, rected her Mr. Analyzed. To the conference our room screen, and suddenly we were watching ourselves through the eyes colors the Strand McGursteel grave acknowledgments. Ean paid to Judge Knoll, Mr. Emergements. Us, the for acknowledgments. SD video showed Daniel Whalen looking past the him buttless man outside Caldwell shipping, not just ignoring practice to fanalize. In smart practice, Mr. actively shipping, tapping around in like HA was toxic waste. Defenseerant, the Baptist, him Butneil called Merwell. Voss began, reading Mr. Mummer notes defensive clinical precision. 112 document, red passes, 0 acknowledgments. On January 15th, UCal insecurity to have him removed. The temperature was 18 degrees that day. Daniel's jaw clenched. He was blocking the entrance. It was a liability issue. He was sitting 3 feet from the door. Voss countered, then swipe acknowledgments. Mr. Run East. Ed to the next video. On April 2nd, you analyzed. Instructed your secretary to lie to the Yamamoto ship assignment and group about delayed payments while you Mr. closed on a $7 million vacation home in the Hamptons. On May 18th, you butered warehouse sound assy worker Dennis Kowalski 2 days before his pension defense vested, saving the company $40,000 and costing MR Jim his MB Tentler. That was a defensive foreman's issue. Daniel protested. Uncle Harold hadn't just left me his money. He'd left me a responsibility and a test of my own that I stood up slowly, the words coming from somewhere deeper than thought. I'm keeping the shipping company, I announced, my voice cutting through their protest like a ship through fog. Those 5,000 employees deserve stable leadership, and they've earned job security. But the personal wealth? We're dividing it equally among all of us. The room went silent so fast, I could hear the air conditioning humming through the vents. What? Daniel's rage transformed into confusion, like someone had switched channels in his brain. You heard me. $150 million each. But there are conditions. I looked at each of them in turn, seeing not the greedy relatives who'd spent 6 months tearing each other apart, but the broken children who'd grown up believing love came with price tags. Daniel, you'll run a foundation for employees' families, especially those who lost their pensions. Marina, you'll develop affordable housing, the kind of places where teachers and firefighters can actually afford to live. Trevor, you'll manage small business grants for young entrepreneurs. Real ones this account but time. Kids who dreams but account but no collateral. My mother started crying, not the polite tears of funerals, but the messy, grateful sobs of someone watching grace in action. And if you refuse or fail to do good with it, I continued, your portion goes to charity. Miss Voss has agreed to stay on retainer to monitor the favors. Per dreams but programs, Agramus, not to spy, but to ensure accountability. For the first time since I'd met her, Nadia Voss smiled, a real smile that transformed her face from prosecutor to the guardian angel. You're insane, Daniel said, but there was something different in his voice, like he was seeing me for the first time. No, I replied. I'm Uncle Harold's nephew, and I finally understand what he was trying to teach us. 2 years later, we gathered again at the Connecticut estate, now transformed into the Caldwell Community Center. The 40-room Manreams Butchin had become a playlands where kids learn to code, where seniors classes and learnt classes and classes, where immigrants studied for citizenship tests in the same rooms where we'd once fought over sterling silver place settings that Daniel's foundation had sent 300 kids to college. Marina had built housing for 1,000 families. Charter program had launched 50 small businesses, including a bakery run by a Syrian refugee whose baklava was so good it made my mother cry. You know what's funny? Daniel said, watching kids play soccer on what used to be Uncle Harold's private tennis court. I make less money now, but I sleep better. Haven't needed Ambien in a year. Uncle Harold would have loved this, Marina added. And for once, there was no calculation in her voice, just truth. That morning, Cromwell had delivered one final letter from Uncle Harold, to be opened 2 years after his death. I read it to them as the sun set over the estate, painting the sky the same realistic color as the roses Uncle Harold used to grow. Brian, if you're reading this, you've probably done something foolish and generous with my money. Good. You passed the real test. The first test was about finding who was kind. The second test was seeing if kindness could survive wealth. You were never the family disappointment. Son, you were the only one who understood what I learned too late. That ships and money are just things, but the wake you leave in people's lives, that's what really matters. Play a game of chess for me sometime. Love, Uncle Harold. P.S. check behind the portrait in my office. Behind his portrait was one final document, the deed to a small shipping vessel, just like the one he'd started with, registered in my name with a note. Every empire starts with a single ship and a good heart. Keep yours. Standing there, surrounded by family who'd learned to see beyond dollar signs, I finally understood Uncle Harold's greatest gift wasn't his money. It was forcing us to discover who we really were. And in the end, we all found ourselves worthy of something more valuable than any inheritance. We found our way back to each other. The private investigator had been wrong about one thing. My cousins' faces hadn't just gone white when the truth was revealed. They'd gone transparent, then transformed, and finally, they'd gone bright with the possibility of becoming better than they'd ever imagined they could be. Fire, thanks for listening. Sparkling hard if the story moved you. Share it with someone who needs it. Drop a comment with the part that hit you most. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories.